Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting each episode by saying thank you. I feel so grateful for this podcast and the people it's reaching and the impact it's having. My objective when I started was to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey, and just receiving weekly messages and kind of messages from people the impact it's having just really does lift my soul. It just beautiful to read, beautiful to hear. We don't, as I always say, we don't really, we don't plan these episodes. We don't script anything. Whatever comes through, comes through. And this is our way of giving back. So thank you for everyone that supported us. Thank you for everyone that listens regularly. Thank you. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love what I get to do. In this changing time where everybody's going through something, I get to guide people to truly be their authentic selves, to work through whatever trauma, whatever inner child healing, whatever programming that needs to be released to truly become their authentic selves. And this time, whatever the planet's going through, it really is a time to focus on you. And I love the fact I get to guide people to do that. I heal as I heal others, and I feel very blessed with what I get to do. And this podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful co-host, introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and published author, Stacey Brown. Stace, can you introduce yourself? And I've got to do that,
Yeah.
People expect
I don't know how I would respond if you introduced me any differently, because I'm so used to laughing when you do that. But hi, everybody. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader, spiritual coach, and mentor, and a recently published author. My book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, is available on Amazon and Audible. Really looking forward to spending time with all of you today.
Thank you, Stace. And this week's topic again we picked just before we started recording, really, in terms of what do we feel about the current energy, what's going on the planet. And a lot of the conversation we've been having recently is about people having a foot in two camps. I a foot in their old life and a foot in their new life, and kind of having this uneasy feeling, and almost like a feeling of not belonging. So this week, the topic is around the in-between, when your soul has moved on, but life hasn't caught up. And that, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, and I can certainly relate to, and I know Stace can. And it does really feel that in-between phase. It feels like, our soul is ready, our spirit is ready for whatever's next, and is excited by it. And our life itself is still very much in between, right? There's, for me, for a while, I felt a real shift happening inside me, and it's that, like I'm in a holding pattern, and I can feel the planet shifting. I can feel me shifting. So I can really relate to this topic. It's that really that, I also describe it as the energetic gap between the old and the new. And this holding pattern, this kind of phase, I always find the physical is always the last thing to integrate. Our spirit is obviously ready, kind of has maybe a different level of insight. But whatever we're doing, we still need to kind of release any healing, any trauma that we need to maybe release those souls that we're holding on to, and anything that we're doing that really is our old self, but also our ego holds on to our old self. So this phase is necessary, even if it feels awkward, even if it feels like you're not there. I mean, I was talking to Stacey before we began, and I was just like, I don't feel like I'm in my physical body today. It's just like I feel like I'm floating along, and it's just a weird feeling. And today the day we're recording is on Monday the 7th. Mercury retrograde just finished, and Venus retrograde finishes in a few days, and we got like a 3-week period where we've got no planets in retrograde. But really, this phase that we've just been through, and it's kind of near the end, has been really kind of like a roller coaster. So much planetary shifts, so much happening, so much happening behind the scenes. Because this is the thing, when you sometimes you feel that nothing's happening, stuff is happening with your guides and the universe behind the scenes, which you can't see, but it is a trustful, right? And I always think of the phrase, God's delays are not God's denials. It's like there's that holding pattern, that period of in between, which is meant to be uncomfortable. It's like, you becoming a butterfly, you're in that cocoon, you're a gooey mess. And Stacey joked about it last week. It's like, when are we actually going to come out of this gooey mess? Because it feels like we've been in this mess for a long time. And it's just kind of true, but it's really important that you stay the course, right? You trust, you let go. And I get there's going to be times you get frustrated. There's going to be times you get excited. But that's part of what this phase is, right? The in-between, the void. Stacey, I know you can relate to this topic very much. We were talking about it, like I said, before we started recording. But when I say to you, what's in your in-between phase, this phase of your life, I know you've just come back to the US. But when I ask you, how does it feel when I say your soul is ready, has moved on, but life hasn't caught up? How does that resonate with you?
Well, this is my first episode recording back in the States after being in the UK for 3 months. And I have been dealing with jet lag and some pretty significant fatigue. And I'm absolutely feeling like I'm in this in-between transition. I came back here and spent the weekend with my kids, which was amazing. Having time with them, catching up. I hadn't seen them in 3 months. And all my kids were here this weekend, which was really wonderful to have that time with them. And I'm just in this space right now where I'm trying to embrace where I am, which is back in the States and away from my partner, and make plans in anticipation of what's next. And so I absolutely feel like I'm in the in-between right now. And it's interesting because I feel peace in certain ways, like I feel peace in my decisions and what's coming, but I feel a lot of churning about this kind of transitional in-between space. And it feels uncomfortable and awkward. And I'm not quite sure what to make of it. And so I'm trying really hard to be open with those around me that are in my life about what's happening as I make my plans for next steps. And it is just a season of unknown and transition that I think would make anybody uncomfortable. And it is something that I know I need to go through, but it doesn't mean that I like it. And I just wonder how many of our listeners can relate to this, where you know where you want to be in your life and you're not quite there yet. And you're in this in between. And what do you do in the in between? How do you manage the in between? How do you peacefully navigate being uncomfortable and not let it consume you? Right? Like, you still have to function, you still have to live, you still have to do your thing. And what does that look like? And it can be a really awkward place to be when you feel like you're in that in between. And I would absolutely say that's where I am right now.
And you mentioned the people around you, right? That's always another sign that you're shifting and maybe your old world isn't, is when, the people around you are trying to understand where you are and you feel different. The external world gives you a lot of clues. And, when you talk about the soul, the soul already shifted and the soul's ready. I really believe every soul that's here on this planet right now chose to be here for this planetary shift. So, the soul chose to be here during these crazy times. But the human obviously is a little bit disconnected. But knowing that your soul has shifted, what does that look like? What does it look like when you've kind of been through a rebirth? It means that the things that used to matter to you don't feel important anymore. The things that used to excite you maybe don't excite you anymore, but you still do them. And it's like, well, you don't get the same level of energy. And the things that maybe you need to try something new, and maybe that's going to start to make you feel different. You start to get intuitive nudges and knowings that something's changed, something feels different. Like I was talking to Stacey before we started, something just feels different. It's just, there's a knowingness. And this is the thing our guides do. They don't always show us because maybe we're not ready to hear. Maybe there's something the human still needs to release. But the soul knows. There's that intuitive nudge where you're in this world, but you don't really feel like you belong. I'm sure there's many people listening saying, well, I've never really felt like I belong. But for me, it kind of feels even more extreme. Being misaligned to the current reality. And the other thing, actually, and I can definitely relate, is the physical, energetic symptoms. The kind of feeling tired, restless, like I was saying, not feeling physically in my body. All of those are signs that your soul has shifted, but the human part is still working through it. And this is where kind of the self-care routine and kind of having a really good base, because that allows you to be present and allows you to process in a much quicker way. And it's just, so many people want to bypass the work, but having a strong self-care routine, which includes meditation, some sort of physical activity like walking, running, whatever that may be, also journaling, kind of what works for you, but doing things for you allows you to be present in all four of your bodies. Me and Stacey talk about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. That's what we do with the work that we do. And having that self-care routine allows all four of those bodies to be present. But the stuff I just talked about in terms of your soul already shifted, how does that resonate with our listeners? Feeling detached, not feeling connected to whatever's happening, feeling tired, and through all these retrogrades and the moon shifts and everything else is going on. 100%, I felt more tired. I felt more restless. I felt more. I'm sure I say Stacey on a regular basis. I don't feel physically in my body. It's just all of those are signs. Does that resonate with you? And Stace, when I say to you, do you feel your soul has already shifted? How does that feel? Does that resonate?
Oh, I absolutely feel that my soul has shifted, and I feel like my human is trying to catch up with the shift that I've experienced. I went to the UK with the mindset that I needed answers and I needed clarity and I needed to know what steps I was meant to take next. And I feel like I came home with that clarity to the States. But now it's about getting my life to align with what I'm feeling. And sometimes that can take time, right? We get an answer, we feel it, we know it, and then we have to take the time to make the transition. And it can be a really uncomfortable thing when we're in the in between and we know that we've shifted, we know that something is different, but our life doesn't quite align with that yet. And it can be a really challenging thing to figure out how to make all of that come together, right? How to make life match what we feel it should be. And in that space, there can be a lot of churning and a lot of like spinning, and you can feel disoriented. I almost feel like do you remember when you would go to the playground as a kid and you would get on the little ride that spins around and you would spin it as fast as you could with your friends, and then you would jump off and be really dizzy and disoriented? I kind of feel like that right now. I kind of feel like I just got off this ride and I'm spinning and I'm trying to find my footing again. And it's a really weird place to be. And yet I feel like a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with that space of being dizzy and trying to find your footing again. And it's not something that you even can see coming necessarily. I think oftentimes we can just feel this churning happening within us, and then something happens to validate that we've shifted, and then we have to catch up to whatever that shift is. And it's interesting because my mind is going like a million miles an hour ahead of where I am, like, okay, I have this, this, and this to do, and this going on, and how am I going to fit this in? And just this kind of spinning. And yet I know that this is part of the process because the decisions that I'm making are such big ones that I'm not going to be able to make them overnight. And I'm not going to be able to make those shifts happen overnight. It's major life shifting, and it's going to take time.
And that's the key, right? It's going to take time. And, part of this phase is that feeling of feeling difference, kind of like you almost don't belong in that world, this world. But that awareness is the first step, right? Knowing that you're shifting, knowing that you don't belong, and actually being okay with it and trusting whatever's next is part of this journey. But it is, easy for me to say that, right? Because I feel like the human and the spirit, and I'll talk about it in every episode, that I just feel like there's a misalignment right now because the shift is so big. But this is, I guess, partly why we have this podcast is really that to validate whatever you're going through, there's so many other people going through the same thing. Maybe different words, different, your situation, circumstances may be slightly different or different. But the premise that you are going through a shift and you are, you have your foot in both camps in some way, I feel like a lot of people resonate with. And, why is there a difference, right? Why can't our spirit shift at the same time as the human? There's always, I feel like there's always work to do that, right? There's always divine timing versus human impatience. And trust me, one of my lessons in this lifetime is patience for sure. And letting go of control. And, your ego wants to control everything. But managing expectations and trusting whatever's next. We before we started recording this episode, Stacey did a grounding process for us in that. Just stepping barefoot in the grass. I mean, if you're in the UK right now, the weather's turned, sun's out, just step barefoot in the grass, let Mother Earth ground you. So, so powerful, and trusting that whatever shift's happening is for your good. But you've still got to meet the universe halfway by, meditating, doing the journaling, doing something. It's that, sometimes there's a feeling when you're in this void, just sit and wait. Yeah, there is that. Let go of your expectations or whatever it looks like next, but still do the work. And Stacey, I know that that's something that you resonate with in terms of having that strong self-care routine. How are you navigating? What's your plan to navigate this space you're in? Coming back in the US, kind of working on whatever you're doing longer term. What's your plan to navigate this space?
That's such a good question. And I feel like our audience is probably going to be hanging on to the answer, like, okay, Stacey's about to drop this nugget. And I think the first thing is to remain present. It's very, very easy to go to that space mentally of where you want to be. And I think it's good to envision where you want to be. But I also think it's really important to be present and accept your current circumstances. It doesn't mean that you're accepting them long term and saying, okay, I'm going to be a victim to my circumstances. But I'm talking about being present. Like, it would be very easy for me to exist in the space of anticipating being back in the UK and to be fixated on that. But if I do that, then I'm missing out on the experiences that I have here with my children. and I'm missing out on the experiences of day-to-day life with my clients, with you recording this podcast. So I think the first thing is to really work on remaining present and being accepting of what today is. We can be excited about what tomorrow is going to bring, but I think there's something about staying in the moment and being intentional in being in that moment and being present. So I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm trying to be really aware of my routine. And I don't want to stay frantically busy because I don't believe that that's a healthy space to be in. But I want to be in a space where I am doing the things that I need to do and the things that I love to do. So for me, that's about planning and being intentional with my time and saying, okay, I'm waking up at a certain time. This is my routine. This is what I'm doing in my day, kind of planning out how I'm going to spend my time. Really important. And I think that making sure that not only am I doing the things that I do to care for other people, but I'm also caring for myself. And I know we talk about a self-care routine on here so much. And it probably gets old to hear, but there's something really, really important about having that self-care routine. And so as I'm recovering from jet lag, I'm determined to get back into an exercise routine and to allow myself that space that I need to move my body. I've been journaling about my thoughts and giving my thoughts a space to breathe, right? Like there are so many things that I'm thinking and feeling right now. And by writing, it gives me a space to process them and a space to allow myself to freely express all that I'm feeling at this time. And then I think as I'm being present, making sure that I'm showing up for the people in my life that need me. I live with my daughter who is 11, and I have had 3 months away from her. And this time with her is precious. And so I really want to embrace that as much as I can. And if I'm thinking about what's coming next, then I'm not really in the present moment with her. And that's something that's really important to me. So I think that there's beauty in anticipating what's coming next with excitement and vigor and thinking about the next steps that you want to take and actively taking them. But I think there's a balance that we have to have in being present and intentional in this moment. And so I really want to be intentional with what I do and how I'm showing up in the world. I think another part of that I just want to add is making sure that I'm getting proper rest. Jet lag is a real thing, and I didn't realize the impact that it would have on me in this season. And I've really been very intentional about making sure that I'm getting in bed at a reasonable time and allowing my body the time that it needs to rest and recover from the day before. When I'm rested, I show up in a different way and I'm more present because I'm rested. So I feel like there are a lot of things that I'm doing right now to ensure that I'm in a healthy space. And I really feel like the key word is balance, making sure that I am doing everything that I can with the people around me and with myself.
So many nuggets in what you said. There's being present, so important right now. It's just that's all we can control. And again, I'm sure lots of people have heard me say this before, but it's that all we can control is this moment. What's our focus in this moment? Because we can't change the past, and I think we've learned we can't change the future. Really, we can. Look at what's happened on the planet right now. There's so much change, so much shift, but we can choose what we focus on this moment. And we talk about self-care. Stacey just talked about it, but also go back to the things that worked for you in the past. Stacey's, when she talks about all these things, she's she's relying on things like journaling, self-care, the running, the exercise, because she knows those things work for her. Again, we'd recommend doing all of those, right? I mean, for me, the journaling, the meditation for sure, being present in my own space. And I know when I don't meditate, I don't feel like I'm here. So it's kind of like, it's a weird space, but do what works for you. Kind of that being present in the magic and letting go. How much control do you really have? I mean, what are you trying to control? Talk to your ego. Your ego is trying to control everything. Feeling nervous is feeling because there's a shift coming. But being present for this shift, because you've worked really hard for the shift. You've been through so much. Let's take a look at the last few months, last few years, everything you've gone through. You've been working hard for this shift. And what if this is just a waiting period? You're in the waiting room for whatever's next. But you have to keep showing up for you. And do the things that work. I mean, if you're feeling the need for more insight, you can book an Akashic record reading. That's a beautiful way of getting insight into your soul's journey. But also the grounding, if you're near water, step in the water and just allow Mother Earth to just cleanse your energy. If you're not, then step on grass. Use the
Another
things.
thing, Nims, is some of us don't know what works. And if you don't know what works, maybe it's time to figure it out, right? Like to experiment and figure out what things do work for you. Because some of us don't know yet what works for us. And I feel like the only way you can figure that out is by experimenting and figuring out what feels good to you. Like, I didn't realize how much I missed exercise until I wasn't doing it. And when I got back into it consistently, it made a world of difference. So if you're not sure what works for you, start exploring it.
100%. What gives you joy? But I guess my point is, if things like exercise has worked for you in the past, like it has for you, Stace, then go with that. At least start there. Kind of go back to what gives you that grounding, what gives that presence. If it's a certain type of meditation, if it's journaling, and if you've not done journaling before, 100% recommend trying it. Journaling is it's a spiritual release where everything you're holding on to, because the things we hold on to have to come out in some kind of way. If we don't release them, then we're like a volcano. We keep pushing things down, and it's like if we don't find a way to release it, it may come out in anger, it may come out in illness. Whereas when you journal, you're releasing the things you're holding on to, and it's like a spiritual release. You're releasing it out of your body onto paper. So yeah, 100% do try new things, because you've just gone through a shift too, right? So the things that used to work for you may not work anyway. So it's that, but do what's right for you, what resonates. But you've got to try things for a certain period of time. You can't just do it once. The Stacey would say you can't go to the gym once and have a six-pack. So do something for a regular period. We always recommend 21 days. When I start working with people, I always recommend 3 things. The first thing is 10-minute silence. And a lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't sit in silence. But if you try for 21 days, you'll start to feel the shift. And what I recommend is just sit for 10 minutes and think of it as, if you can't do 10 minutes, start with 5. But think of it as 10 minutes for you. And if a thought comes in, let it come, let it go. Don't get annoyed, because so many people sit there for 30 seconds and all of a sudden thought comes in and they get so annoyed with themselves and stop. No, if a thought comes in, you've got to create the muscle. The second thing is mirror work. Look into your. They say your eyes are mirrors to the soul. So look into your eye, look deep into who you are, and say whatever's in your heart. I always recommend, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And third thing is, like we already said, is journaling, because stuff is going to come up with the first 2. So do what resonates. Out of all the things we've said, if there's something that sparks in your soul, try that, but do it for a consistent period of time. And ultimately, whatever's for you will find you. So trying to rush the process is actually part of the frustration. And it's easy for us to say, but letting go and just trusting that you're here to learn something. Maybe change your question. Ask, what are you integrating right now? What are you learning from this process? Because again, sometimes our question is what limits us. Sometimes it's like when we say things like, oh, this always happens to me. I knew it. Oh, I'm so frustrated. But when we start to ask, how is this helping us? How are we growing from this process? because we're all growing, right? Our souls expanding in some kind of way. So trusting that what is for you will find you. And what if we shift from the feeling of waiting to becoming? What if we really kind of connect and feel on what we're becoming? Because so many of us are getting the push to shine our light, to become light workers, whatever that looks like, maybe to change your careers. Something's shifting. So what if you're becoming into the light that you're meant to be? What if everything you've been through is training you for what's next? It's always a good reminder you're not alone in this space. I mean, me and Stacey can 100% relate. I'm sure there's so many people that can relate to this period of being in between. I mean, I remember when I was in the corporate space and I knew I had to leave and I was waiting. I was hoping that I was going to get a package. I was in this company for 17 years. Didn't get a package, but still had to leave because I knew I was in that void and I had to do something about it. So this is the trick between waiting and taking action and trusting your intuition. Sometimes we keep taking different actions, even though we know in ourselves that we should be patient. So it's that trusting your intuition. Is there some action? Is there something you need to let go of? Is there some souls that are ready to release? Or is your intuition saying just to wait? What's for you will find you. What's your advice for continue to navigate this space, Stace? What else would you tell our listeners to kind of be aware of and kind of take stock of? Maybe some journal prompts.
So I absolutely think that when we're in a season of transition and we're churning, we can get lost in it if we're not careful. And I absolutely feel that the being present is the biggest thing. And so I would encourage you to pick up your journal and write about where you are right now. What are you experiencing right now? And what can you be grateful for that you have in this moment of this season of, I guess, waiting or transition? What can you be grateful for that you have right now in this moment? Not anticipating what's coming next, but in this actual moment, what do you have to be grateful for? Gratitude is such an important practice and such a big part of my journaling that I teach people is when you're in a space of gratitude, it immediately boosts your mood, okay, and puts you in a more positive space. So what can you be grateful for in this moment? And journaling about that is a great place to start. And then what is it that you want to manifest into your life? And taking some time to write about what's coming next and what you're excited about. I think there's a balance between being grateful for what we have and being excited about what's coming next. And when we can find that balance of both, it can keep us in a really great space because we can stay motivated to continue to work on the goals and dreams that we have. So if you're not already an active journaler, I encourage you to try the practice of journaling. And if you go to my website, you can download my template for free. And it helps you to give you a guide as to how to journal. I've found that a lot of people don't journal because they don't know what to write about. They sit down with a blank piece of paper and their mind goes blank and they don't know what to put on the paper. But having a template can be a great space to help you to see, okay, this is how I can journal effectively and allow myself a space to process what I'm going through. I think a lot of us don't take the time that we need to with our thoughts. We don't take the time. We're racing through every day. We collapse in bed at the end of the day, and we haven't really thought through what we're feeling and processed any of that. But journaling gives you a space to do that, just like meditation gives you a space to do that. And being in touch with what you think and feel is huge.
Love it, Stace. So many nuggets, and it's just I'd agree on the journaling. The other thing is being with you. It's if you're struggling to spend time with you on your own, then it normally means it's a sign that you're ready to process something and you're resisting it. So enjoy this phase. What if this phase is, it's a bit quieter, maybe it's a holding pattern, maybe you're meant to integrate, but doing all the things that we've talked about, and certainly spending time with you, certainly spending time in meditation, listening to your intuition. What if this is just training you for what's coming next? And sure, look for support. This, as we shift from divine masculine to divine feminine, community and support, asking for help is a really big part. Maybe there's something me and Stacey can help you with. If there's something in our voices that resonate, we have a beautiful mentorship program which guides people to be their authentic selves. And we through 12 weeks, weekly calls, you can work with both of us or individually. We take you through and we work through whatever trauma you're holding on to, each of your 4 bodies: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We guide you to become your truly authentic self. And it should come with a health warning because we go really deep, but we hold your space lovingly while you go through the shift. Maybe that's something that resonates. But if it's not us, then maybe look for another spiritual mentor or a guide, or ask the universe what help you need. When the student's ready, the teacher show up. When the teacher's ready, the student will show up. In that, trust that you'll get the help. And also, otherwise, look for communities. We have a monthly Zoom call. We just had one. The next one will be in May. But again, I'll always include it in the show notes when the next one is. But join whichever community resonates, knowing that you're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And the void is sacred. This feels like a shifting time. Your soul chose to be here. And you've been preparing for this phase. You've been preparing for whatever's next. You're ready. We're so proud of you. You've been through so much. And every time I do the monthly Akashic message, I feel like our guides are so celebrating us. We've been through so much. We've shifted so much. And I look at the time now, it's 3:33. It's a beautiful, beautiful time if you really truly embrace the shifting energy, because your soul chose to be here during this shifting time. The other thing that we haven't talked too much about is the noise on the outside. There's so much noise. There's so many things shifting in the political, the weather, the wars. And again, send love. Of course, this is impacting so many people. But at the same time, make sure you take time for you. Make sure you take time to heal. Make sure you take time to listen to your intuition. We love you guys. Sending you so much love. We resonate with everything you're going through. If there's a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We love the feedback. Actually, this topic was inspired by a message Stacey received. So thank you. And Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out for any final bits of wisdom you have to share.
So, my friends, be patient with yourselves. When you're in a season of transition, there can be so much anticipation and frustration. And I just encourage you to get back to the present moment. What are you grateful for today? What can you do today that lifts your soul? And allow yourself to be in a space that is a healthy one, whatever that looks like for you. We're deeply grateful to every single one of our listeners. Thank you for being so supportive of our efforts to give back. This is a wonderful space to explore your spirituality and to understand more about who you are and why you're here. Thanks again for another great episode.
Thank you, Stace. Thank you for all the wisdom. Thank you for everyone that's listening. And I should have mentioned, if you want to find out more about mentorship, book a free discovery call. We'd love to take you through what we do. I'll include a link in the show notes. But yeah, Stace says, be kind to yourself. Enjoy this space enjoy this space as the next 3 weeks, depending on when you listen to this. But there's no retrogrades. There's no crazy retrogrades that we've been facing for maybe 6 months now. So enjoy this time. As the weather changes, depends where you are. Let the sun heal you. Let the full moon heal you. There's so much, there's so much naturally you can do from a healing perspective. I really do feel like the universe wants to support us, wants to hold our space, and is kind. And but also has a role to make sure that we do shift, that we do go through these upgrades, we do go through these rebirths, and we do experience what our soul's here to experience. So we love you very much. We thank you. Truly hope you can feel the love of the universe, sending so much love and light out. And bye for now. See you all very, very soon.